Good day, my friends. Today, I guess I'm going to touch on the wow, that was weird. I'm going to touch on the enormity of the scope of the size of the brain, and rather the potential within the brain, the human mind. It's something that I'm completely out of my league on, and am not qualified to talk about, which is a perfect reason for me to make a video talking about it, as I always do. I remember hearing this quote several times about how there are as many neurons in the brain as stars in the Milky Way galaxy. So I had to look it up to actually get a confirmation on this. As it turns out, by latest estimates, there are about 200 to 400 billion stars in the galaxy, but there are about 86 billion. First, for the last century, they believed there were about 100 billion neurons in the human mind. And recently they agreed on 86 billion. So let's just start with this number, because all we're doing is going by the math that we can use to determine, these things. Now, picture each one of these neurons firing in different orders, in different patterns, making different connections. And this is creating the holographic reality that you see in your mind. And when I say holographic, I'm not saying the universe is an illusion. I'm talking about the literal hologram that you're seeing when you're visualizing things. Your eyeballs don't actually, obviously, send the actual picture to your brain as you're seeing it. It's flipped and the signals are sent. One of the most amazing things is how the eyeballs are actually separate from the rest of the body. They have their own enclosed system, and they send those signals back, in the brain decodes them, if you will, into sight. And it's a very complex process, because sometimes it goes wrong. And this is usually what happens with people who have synesthesia, which is where you might hear colors or see sounds. First time I ever had an experience with that was when I was about 16 years old, and a friend and I took a relatively large dose of LSD, and we spent the rest of the night sitting in the garage hole, we called it, which was my room. It was like half the garage converted into my bedroom. And I remember at a point, I was looking over, and it was an unfinished garage, so the wood panels, you could still see the studs in the wall, and then the siding on the outside. And the siding was full of knots. It was like a knotty pine. And as I was looking from knot to knot, they were speaking in different tones. I wrote this down. I said, because I remember seeing it on the paper years later. It said, what does it say? The knots are talking, or something like that. And I was like, okay. And it wasn't until I learned about synesthesia that I started to understand what was going on. And it's the same way with music. Music can be felt and heard, or felt the way it's heard. I've had music literally wash over me in certain states of mind. It's an interesting feeling. So the mind, the tendency for the mind to make things make sense for us, is something that we take for granted. In other words, we can wake up, I can visualize the cup in front of me, I can tell what it is. There's so much involved in taking a drink. You have to know that the vessel can contain it. I mean, this it sounds silly, but you have to make sure that it's the right temperature so you won't burn or freeze yourself. You have to make sure that the flavors are right, and that it's not something that tastes horrible. And on top of all that, you have to make sure that there's so I guess I can't really figure out how to tie that in. I had a point that I was getting at there, but it's something I can't vocalize. There's so much more involved in each thing that we do that we don't give ourselves credit for, and for knowing. We just take it for granted. So just a simple walk through the park requires so many different factors. We have to make sure that we've got the right shoes on. We're using all of our senses: smell, touch, taste, and becoming immersed completely in the environment that we're in. And it's it's something so zen, that can't be really expressed in words. Everyone who's walked through the woods alone, which I did today, it was funny because it was the first time I've actually gone on a hike by myself, or a drive and a walk in years. I mean, I just really don't do that anymore. It's something I never really did. I have a friend that used to go hiking by himself all the time, but I just always say, hey, I can't do it. I always want to have company with me. So I figured today I'd force myself to go out. And during that time when I was out driving and thinking, I was able to get a lot more accomplished in the back of my mind. I was able to resolve a couple of things that I've been trying to work out. And this is because I gave my brain time to relax and reformulate. The way that our brains work, what they call those dogs are the worst. What they call neuroplasticity is that's the tendency for your brain to wire in certain ways. Now they say neurons that fire together wire together. That's the saying they have in neuroscience, which means that if you play piano long enough, then you will be able to play piano without even thinking about it. I play guitar, and I know what it's like to just start hitting a few chords and not think about it and just realize it's just something you just know how to do. And then all of a sudden you want to, because I never took lessons or anything, but I'll hear like a song and I'll know what chords it is right away because I have that connection. A person who's never played guitar doesn't have those neurons to connect the music to the fingering on the chords. And every little thing we do wires us this way. And when we have a moment where we, let's say we get sucked into fear, the fear cycle, or we start to see bad things happening, negative things happening, then our brain will start to wire in that direction as a protective measure. So, take yourself back 20,000 years. Let's say that you're living in a small village, just learning, just developing the first languages and really able to communicate better, and then you have a constant fear of being attacked by tigers or mauled, and so most of your time is spent dedicated to protecting yourself. So your body's in constant fight or flight, and this releases cortisol, epinephrine, adrenaline. You get this constant rush of fear, which clouds your judgment because your brain is using that energy. Whereas the guy a couple valleys over may be in a safe environment, and he's able to, with the same resources and the same abilities, actually develop language with his tribe because they have more time to think about it. And this is what we're doing right now as a society. We're like a tribe that's finally got to the point where we can start utilizing the different things that we've developed because we're not so fearful. And what this has done is it's not only left a fear vacuum in us, which we replace with conspiracies and worries about work and whatnot, but it's also given us a lot more time to process the things that we maybe wanted to learn. It's like there have always been specialists, people who are really good at one thing, and that's what they do. That's their thing, And for me, living a life like that would be completely overbearing. Like, I couldn't do it. I just could not live knowing that I had to get up and go do the same single thing every day. It's not about going to work and doing the same thing. I'm just saying if I had to go and do the exact same thing, I couldn't do it. But for some people, they're really into that. And it doesn't even have to be working on a conveyor belt or in a factory. I'm talking, you could even just say, your daily thing is to go out and fill out paperwork, let's say. I'd go nuts. And so I step back sometimes and think, why do I feel this way? Why can't I just buckle down and do a monotonous job, if you will? Not mindless, just monotonous. And it's because I've wired my brain a certain way. I do understand that in a way I've wired myself for novelty seeking. And that's kind of the pinnacle of realization, I guess. Sometimes we are so afraid to treat ourselves to something that, because we don't want to lose it. Let me say, it's kind of like attachment to non-attachment in a way. We know that if we're addicted to a particular, let's just take heroin for instance. We know the average person, if they shoot heroin, it's going to be one of the most amazing, enjoyable experiences of their life. I've never heard a single heroin addict who didn't say that the first time I shot up was like heaven. It was like the most amazing thing. I've never done heroin, and there's a reason for that. It's because of the stories people have told me about how great it is. Because once I've sought that novelty, Nothing will compare to it as far as that type of seeking. I know this. And along the same lines, the completely different subject would be money. People who want to be millionaires, and I often think if I had millions, I wouldn't have wanted it as a kid. Now at least I'd know what to do with it if I had it. But 20 years from now I'll look back and say, you didn't know what you would have done with it. I don't desire money, but at the same time I realized that once I had it, nothing would live up to that. When you see rich people who have everything they want, what are they doing constantly is novelty seeking. For some, it's going out and doing the next sport. Or you'll see a lot of people who have a lot of money go out and do a lot of wild, like outdoor sports. Rock climbing, skydiving and stuff. Because they're looking for that rush. And since they can buy anything they want, the only thing you can't buy is that rush of fear. And I know it's not universal. Each person's an individual. There are some rich people who are very calm and collected, and there's some poor people who are that act like rich people that are obsessed about losing $10 or something. But generally, the less money you have, the less you have to defend. Therefore, the less stress you have. And this is something that I think that our minds tend to trick us into thinking that we're okay the way we are. I guess it's passive nature that we have, and it's something that I realized how beneficial it was over the years, and then realized how damaging it can be. Let me give you a line from the Bible: "The meek shall inherit the earth." That's one you hear all the time. What does that mean? Along the lines of the same quotes, there's one that said, "May it be easier to walk a camel through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven." And so many different interpretations of that line, but to me that just means basically it's very, Christians will tell you that it's metaphoric in saying that it's not about how much money you have, it's just about saying that money will not buy you heaven or buy you into happiness. I can see that, but on the same token, I see that many of the ancient proverbs and passages and ancient stories were based on the idea that the meek shall inherit the earth. That if you are calm and, let's say, content with what you have and don't desire more, then you'll be much better off. And in the long run, that is probably true. But at the same time, this keeps people thinking, well, should I not seek more? Should I not seek wealth? Should I not seek something that makes me really happy? It gives a conflict, or what they, dissociative feeling where a person wants to be rich, but they know they shouldn't by their value system. And it's cognitive dissonance is what it's called. And it's when you have two conflicting views. And you're trying to figure out which one is more important, Like, do I live with my values or do I live being able to support my family? It can be something that simple. And often the way that our mind works is to kind of trick us into, maybe not trick us, but we fool ourselves. When people talk about values and morals, and I ask, well, what is a solid value? A person says, "Thou shalt not steal." I say, what if your family's starving and there's a rich man next door that collects taxes and doesn't give back to the community? Would you steal from his garden to eat and feed your family? Most people would say yes. Of course I would. There are a few people who'd say no, but if you were actually starving and your children were starving and you knew that this rich man next door was greedy and he was sucking your taxes, you might take. All this means is that there is an exception to the rule of stealing. Just like if someone was threatening your family and you had the chance to kill them before they killed your family, would you do that? And this makes a very gray area about actual values and morals. And so our brains desire to create these systems so we can understand where we fit in, where we belong. And this is why our neurons will wire in a certain way that allow us to live the way that we live. So the trick is what? To make sure that the way you're living is the way you want to live. I have many things about myself that I haven't even realized until recent years that are holding me back from being the best I can be. Some things like the desire to succeed or to motivate to go gain more, or even as something as simple as just to get a car, you know. I mean, the things that the average person would think that's just a necessity to me are just, meh, you know. And, I don't know. Living simply doesn't mean living broke, but neither does living broke mean living simply. I guess that goes both ways. Oh boy, there's a big mess up here. Oh jeez. I just noticed there was a huge spill up here of bubble solution. I have this piece of cardboard laid out where I'm drying some of my herbs, and it knocked something down. These are my ghost plant. They start out white and they dry black. Such an interesting smell. That smell forever will incite those memories of the first time I ever harvested it. And it always goes back to the brain, the things we remind ourselves of. Anyway, enough of a ramble. I guess I'll talk to y'all later. I hope you're all doing wonderful. Thanks for being cool people. Thanks for being inquisitive people. Thanks for supplementing my videos with good thoughts that help me to go, wow, you know. This channel was never intended to get subs. This channel was intended to be about thoughts. And I removed a bunch of keywords and ideas so I wouldn't attract negative people or people who just wanted to argue. I don't buy into it. I've got a couple trolls who come around harassing me and want to vote my videos down, and they're mad for one reason or another, or a discussion we had, but that goes, you know, with any channel, I suppose. But for the most part, everyone who I talk to is very inquisitive, but also very they contribute very well. Everyone contributes very well to the comment section. I just want people to know that if I don't respond to your comment, if it's a heartfelt comment, I mean, I do apologize. If you have a specific thing, I'd love to answer it. I mean, I know a lot of channels say, oh, screw it, you know, I answer what I can. I like, and I do read every single comment I get, still. I just don't, I'm not able to answer them all, or I'll be on my PC all day. So I'll talk to y'all later, and have a wonderful